In business today, it feels like we're just drowning in data, right? But how do you turn all of that noise into a clear story that actually leads to decisive action? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. And this, right here, is the million-dollar question for pretty much every company out there. We're often data-rich, but wisdom-poor. We have mountains and mountains of numbers, but are we really listening to what they're trying to tell us? Let's figure out how to bridge that gap. Okay, so first things first, let's get on the same page. When we say data analysis, it's not just about staring at some pretty charts. It's this whole methodical process of taking all this messy, raw info and turning it into a seriously powerful tool for making smart decisions. So to make sense of this all, we're going to climb what's called the analytics value ladder. We'll start by looking in the past, then peek into the future, throw in a little AI to supercharge things, and finally get to the ultimate goal, making great decisions. All right, let's get climbing. The first couple of steps on this ladder are all about understanding the past. I mean, think about it. You can't really know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right? This is ground zero, the absolute starting point for any kind of analysis. Before we can strategize, before we can even dream, we have to get a really clear, objective, and maybe even brutally honest picture of what's already happened. And the tool we use for this, it's called Descriptive analytics. I like to think of it as the historian for your data. For example, a retail company would use this to create reports on last quarter's sales. It's not going to tell you why sales went up, not yet. It's just laying out the cold, hard facts, the what. And you see this stuff in action literally everywhere, every day. That dashboard you look at with your company's KPIs, that's it. That report tracking return on investment, yep. It's all about establishing the baseline, basically telling you the score of the game. Okay, so knowing what happened is great, but it's just step one. The real aha moment, the magic, happens when you figure out why. So now we take the next step up the ladder to ask that all-important follow-up question. And that's where diagnostic analytics steps onto the stage. So if descriptive analytics was our historian, diagnostic analytics is the detective. If sales for a product suddenly shot up, the detective asks, why? Was it that new marketing campaign? Did something go viral on social media? Did a competitor mess up? It's all about digging for the root cause. And look, this isn't just guesswork. It's a really methodical process. First, an analyst spots something weird in the data, a spike, a dip, an anomaly. Then they go on a hunt, collecting all the data related to that weirdness. And finally, they use stats to connect the dots and find those hidden relationships. It's that rigor that separates a real insight from just a hunch. Okay, so we've spent a good amount of time looking in the rearview mirror. Now it's time to shift our gaze forward, through the windshield. Let's tackle the two highest and most valuable rungs on our ladder, which are all about shaping what comes next. This one question, this is what separates the companies that are always playing catch-up from the ones that are actually shaping the future. It's a huge strategic shift from just reacting to the past to really anticipating what's around the corner. And our tool for this is, you guessed it, predictive analytics. What it does is take all that juicy historical data we've already looked at and use it to spot trends and forecast if they're going to pop up again. So our retailer can go from just reporting on last year's sales to actually predicting which products will be the hot sellers next year. That is a game changer. Now, behind the scenes, this is some pretty heavy-duty stuff. And listen, you don't have to be a data scientist to get the gist, but we're talking about things like neural networks and decision trees, really powerful tech that lets machines find subtle patterns in oceans of data that a person could just never spot. And just like that, we've made it to the very top of the ladder, the summit. We know what happened, why it happened, and what's probably going to happen next. But here's the thing, knowing all of that is kind of useless unless we can answer the most important question of all. So what? What do we actually do with this information? This, my friends, is the magic of prescriptive analytics. This is where your data stops being a history book and becomes your trusted advisor. It doesn't just predict what might happen, it actually recommends a specific course of action to get you to your goal. It helps you find the best path forward. And this really gets to the core of why this all matters. It's about confidence. Prescriptive analytics uses everything we've learned to weigh the odds of different outcomes, and that gives businesses the confidence to make a call, even when, and this is key, especially when the future feels uncertain. Okay, so think about every single step we just climbed on that ladder. Now imagine strapping a rocket booster to the whole thing. That's what's happening right now, thanks to one of the most powerful forces in tech.
When we talk about artificial intelligence in this context, it is not just a buzzword. It's a whole toolkit that lets machines think, learn, and adapt, making them an incredible partner in the whole analysis process.
So, how does AI supercharge the process? Well, for starters, it can chew through massive amounts of data, more than a whole team of people could in a lifetime. It spots these incredibly complex patterns that our human brains would just miss. And it serves up these insights practically in real time, which frees up analysts to focus on what humans do best: strategy, communication, and telling the story. All right, let's bring it all together. We've climbed the ladder, we've seen the power of AI, but what's the one thing that holds this entire structure together? The linchpin? It all comes down to one word: trust. I mean, think about it. None of this works, not a single bit, if the data you're starting with isn't reliable and clean. Without that solid foundation, any insight is a guess, and any decision is basically a house of cards. And that's why, even in this age of mind-blowing AI, the human data analyst is more important than ever. They're the guide through the chaos. They're the ones who make sense of it all. At the end of the day, they're the storyteller who finds that one critical signal in a sea of noise for the rest of us. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Right now, your organization is probably sitting on a mountain of data, a treasure trove, really. The tools are there. The framework we just walked through is ready. So the only real question left is, what story is your data just waiting to tell?